All right, welcome back to the Rebuild the Construction Mindset podcast. We are your hosts. I am Kelley Huss and always have Jenna Hamilton with me. We try to drop episodes every other Monday, so subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Rebuild the Construction Mindset. So I'm going to hand it over to Jenna to introduce who we're talking to today.
Thanks, Kelley. So today our guest is a dear friend of mine that I have known for probably about 5.5 years now, I think. Vega Vashtiary. She also was the interior designer, decorator, I guess, at my wedding. So Vega, go ahead and introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about why you got in the industry, how you found yourself there, and just who you are.
Okay. Who I am? Oh my God, that is such an existential question. But yeah, yes, I know Jenna for a while in the wedding and help out with the whole thing. So we're buds. How do I get into interior design? Actually, it's kind of a roundabout way because my first degree was in international affairs. Way different. Start with an I though. So
There you go.
there you go. It's the only similarity.
Some similarities. Sweet.
Yeah. So when I graduated from my first degree, I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I kind of had I don't know, it's like part of the milestone, right? When you graduated, I kind of zoom out and kind of rethink what is it that I want to do. And what I noticed is that I think there's always an inclination in me that I want to be a designer. I think when I graduated high school, I made my parents paid for this class so I can get, because allegedly if you take this class then you can get accepted at this cool design school back in Indonesia. Oh yeah, I'm from Indonesia originally, born and raised, moved here in 2003. So whatever, we're Americans now. And yeah, and anyway, so because of that I was like, I'm getting like an adult. If I don't at least try, I think I would regret this. So then I went back to school again for interior design. And it was obviously design school. You hear the stories. It is, blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, literally, because I definitely drew blood from making boards, making models, all the things. And it's always the first thing you do, just step away from all the samples. You might have to go to the ER. But you can, just from that kind of situation, you know that this is what you want to do, even with all of those hardship. At the end of the day, when you can present what you come up with the whole semester, I can feel the fulfillment and everything. And then just kind of, it just always affirmed to me, yes, this is what I want to do. However, I graduated in 2010, where nobody's hiring anybody in the industry, design or construction. So I did kind of a pivot, and I kind of went to this freight forwarding company, procurement company. It's because they have an Indonesian client, and I speak Indonesian, and so whatever, he became my client, and I did that for a couple of years. But all those 2 years, I always try to go back to design again. I'll do internship. I won't get paid. I have a job, but it just have to be half time. I'll do anything basically. So anyway, I was able to get in, and it's kind of so I'm in healthcare. I've been in the healthcare. I'm a healthcare interior designer for a little over a decade now, 11 years. I did the math before this. And it's kind of maybe an accident, but also it's meant to be, because even in school, I am more drawn to the more institutional kind of design, more, I like more of that. We had this class called specialty, I think, design, and we did a senior living that has memory care for dementia patient and Alzheimer, and kind of go through that. Research was amazing. And my senior project was a prison. mainly because shocking twist. Um, because I had my friend was a social worker, and she was talking, and she was saying like 80% of people who got in prison, they would go out back to to society, and then they have nothing to grasp on, and then they go back again. And then, based on research, your where you are affect you psychologically, emotionally. And then when you look at prison design, they're not the great, especially in the United States. And then you kind of start peeling all the layers, and these people probably got in there for their already aggressive behavior. And then now what you're doing is you're putting them in a small spaces with other aggressive people, because crime in prison is way more than outside of prison. Like, that's just not like, what's the intent here? Are we, if they're gonna ended up going out again, we want them to be better people while they're in there. If the intent is rehab for them, we're not providing the spaces they need to do that. So that's kind of my thesis of my research. And then, like I said, I'm just drawn to more institutional design. And then my first job was a healthcare firm that does hospitals, and that's just, love at first sight and never left. Yeah.
Were you interested?
You go.
Jenna. No. I was gonna say you because you switched from the international communications to interior design. Were you interested in interior design, like just on your own, like a passion that you would do like at home or with other friends, or something on the side that then made you go, oh, I want to try and take this class and try and get into this school?
I think so. Actually, on my last semester at the first degree, I met an architecture student. And then I was like, architecture, well, at first, architecture, I'm always interested in that, like just building structures, interior spaces. And then when I met this person, I'm like, oh, that's cool. You must have like a great draw, like you can draw well, I said. And they said, yeah, you just do it in the computer. And if you don't know, they'll teach you, because that's not how it was when I was in Indonesia, when I tried to get into that design school. One of the tests is that you have to draw a perspective like beautifully. And so that's like, well, I don't know, it's like almost if you don't know how to draw, then you can't get into any design school. At least that's kind of how I felt.
Well, I went to when I started in school, I started through construction management. I thought I wanted to be an architect, and the school I started at, you were in the architectural program, the construction management program was. So I had to take architectural design classes, and I literally had to do those types of drawings. And I am not an artist. It was like, go outside, draw this building in like shade where the sun is hitting it and where it's not. And I'm so black and white that it's like, here's the straight line, and everyone else is coming in with like these beautiful like shaded spaces. I'm like, wait. So I think there is some element that's like they want to teach that early on, but yeah, I think computers at this point have taken over a lot of it. So I definitely think there's an aspect that's still there, but it's not as necessary. But I was like 20 years ago for me, so
yeah. I mean, totally. And I think actually I did a full circle in kind of in that realm, and especially when you're in healthcare, right? It's the well-being, like design is always about the well-being of the people in the interior spaces. And also I'm aggressively indoorsy, so I spend my time indoors a lot.
I like that. Aggressively indoorsy. That's a new.
I mean, truly. Yes. Jenna I can vouch for me. Like, I'll kick and scream if you make me go outside. But so, like, when I first started, it was drilled down in me that you start meeting with facilities people, and they're talking about maintenance, they're talking about cleanability, they're talking about durability. And that was really like, oh my God, this needs to last at least 10 years. And that really make your kind of finishes option like very limited. And but that was like, yes, these people were trying to help the the staff, because they need to clean it all the time. It needs to be easy to clean, and it needs to last. Like if there is a finish that like you set it and you forget it, like that's probably what they want. Like no maintenance. There's no such thing, by the way, just throw it out there. Don't get your hopes up. It's so that's kind of where I was for the longest time. It's always about that. I think in recent years is when I'm like, okay, hold on. Aesthetic is important. And this is why you have me here as a designer. Because I mean, intuitively, whenever I try to do like the durability performance wise, I always try to make it look nice because that is our job. But now I think I am more outspoken in defending my design intent. I'm not as, because in the past, if a GC said like this doesn't work, it's not gonna, the lead time doesn't work, and you just like, oh, okay, whatever you give me, sure, I'll approve it. Like you just panic. That's the younger Vega. Not anymore. Like now I would have like, okay, let's talk about it. It can't be this, I like understanding why, and then just let's find something that works for the space. Because to me right now, in terms of like design intent and aesthetic, those things that is what affects you. That is, as a designer, that's where you come in to create the experience for everybody, for occupants, staffs, visitors, family, patients, everybody. So it is important. And yeah, so that's kind of like my full circle, that I won't let anyone just gonna talk down about finishes. And listen, it's changing. When I first started, you come in as oh, hi, I'm an interior designer, and people you can just feel the eyes rolling like, ugh, well, cut that finishes out because we need this mechanical. And you can't really, well, at the time, like, like you can't really fight it. Like, yeah, we need air. Sure, cut my wall covering. But then, like, as I start seeing like budget, like, really, you want to cut $2,000 out of like whatever million you have? Like, what is that gonna do? So that's kind of yeah, I definitely kind of more advocating for my design intent.
So do you think it's I guess compared to when you first started interior design to now, do you feel like contractors are getting better at understanding design intent and understanding the value in what you're doing, or do you feel like it's going the other direction?
Oh, I think it's much better. Yeah, it's definitely better than before. Like, listen, we can all improve ourselves. Definitely there's room for improvement. But if we're comparing it to when I first started, it's a lot better. I remember when I first started, if I ever have to go to a job site, and I don't like this. I'm a friendly person, you know this, and I just like, hey, what's up? I love hugs. But when I first started, I remember every time going to a construction site or a job site, I just remember like, okay, game face on, let's do this. Nobody gonna, like, I just have to be like this strong. I mean, I guess I'm a strong woman mentally. Yeah, but there's like, I can sense that I'm gonna like be defensive and just be, I don't know, like tough skin, that I don't think it's necessary. Well, now I feel when I can have adult conversation, like just a conversation with other people in the trade, they have respect for me, I have respect for them. It's really not, I don't have to be like, yeah, what's that, man, or whatever. Like, that's not me. I can just be, silly and awkward, but somehow, still communicate. Oh, the reason I want the soffit to go that way is because I want, people from this hallway able to see that the nurse station's right there. So it's intuitively walking them towards that way because we want them to go that way. And then they were like, oh, okay. It's just like, I don't just make the soffit bigger because I want it.
Yeah.
Like,
I would say I wouldn't, it's taken me years to understand that there's more to the thought process of that. I remember the first job I interned on during college, it was a gym down in out in San Francisco, and it was like everything was painted white except for like this one soffit in this whole entire area. And I just was like, this is stupid. Like, why is this like that? And it has literally stayed in my brain because I don't visually understand it. And this goes back to, why I'm not an architect or any type of designer, and why I need a picture that it tells me exactly what I'm going to design my bedroom like, because it takes me forever to figure this out. It's like I just don't understand the mindset behind it. But then once I was on a couple of the collaborative projects where I had those people with me and I could hear what you just said, like there's a thought process behind it, and here's my reason why. Like to that point, I'm like, I'm just I did this. I'm just framing a soffit. Now you want to change the damn soffit, and now I got to spend more time. I'm like, you want it 2 inches bigger, whatever it is. Like, are you kidding me?
yeah.
Like I just finished this or whatever. It's just there's that into like, because we don't understand the why when we're out in the field. Like we have no clue that is the value that you're seeing. And I think there's a really big aspect of when we can spend time together to understand why you're there and why you are just as important as anyone else on the design team. Because then I can be like, okay, that makes sense. I have more like pull to go and fix that, because yes, of course, like I want to be able to see the nurses station. That I've lived in a hospital a lot last couple of years, and as you were saying that, I thought about that as I was like walking out of like our hospital room, and I looked down the hallway like, okay, which nurse station am I going to? So I thought about that. I have a unique experience, but I think that's a really great example, is like there's a reason why, and we should understand that why more than just going, oh, it's the interior designer. They're going to make some type of change. It's going to affect me. Oh, great.
Yes.
This is horrible.
And that was how I felt, because that was the interaction I had, right? Like when I first started, it does make me feel like, yeah, you're right. I'm just finishes. I'm just putting stuff on walls. Like, who am I? I'm nobody. But like as you just keep moving forward, I speak with, more end users and understanding where they're coming from, and you're like, no, they need this. And then walking a hospital, I visited a friend. My husband is notorious that he cannot navigate indoor spaces. So, and he was trying to I'm used to this, he's not. And seeing it through his eyes, yes, everything looks the same to him. And I can see like the little nuances, but he can't. And okay, yeah, this is why we add accent paint. It does sounded so frivolous. Like, why are you putting accent paint? Like, because we need maybe a strong word, but like if you have that long of a hallway and you just paint it white, the feeling that you get out of like just white walls with handrail, it will be different when you try to break it with some kind of element, like an architectural element. Even like the cheapest, obviously paint, you can still break up the space and you're not overwhelmed with the longness of corridors. So that's kind of, yes, I am important, damn it. And just like, yeah. So anyway, and then once I was able to embrace me and the profession that way, then I was able to communicate to the other discipline, the other trades, better. And then I can see like, okay, and we're all human. I think understanding the why, maybe even if someone doesn't care, like, I don't care, just tell me what to do. But once you understand the why, I think it does help in just carrying, like moving forward. Yeah, because it does. That's also like and when I first started, never care about what's happening above ceiling, right? Like it's freaking mechanical. Like why can't I have 15-foot ceiling? And then one of the collaborative projects that I was on, we have to collaborate. I'm like, I want 15 foot. Like, well, you can't, but why? And then they were like, well, the under the deck is this. My duck is over here, and then like we need this. Like, okay. So then now that's also an understanding on my part. Like, to me, it's not because they just want to make it hard on me to not letting me have a higher ceiling in a lobby or something, but like we definitely on that one. I really like that project. And then so he said, I can give you 12. It was like a negotiation. Like, okay, 12. I'll take 12.
Take 12.
And then yeah, and then one time, like, oh no, Vega, we have like a 4-foot white duck that needs to go across this whole space. 4 feet. Like, holy crap. Like, okay, let me think about it. Let's make it look nice. So then him and I, we created a soffit, like a step soffit, to hide it, and it's actually it's a duck. But it looks like a design element,
See, but I love that because it's like, I think that's one thing that kids coming out of school or just people getting into the industry, especially on the construction side of things, it's almost like this like automatic assumption that it's the design team against the construction team, right? Like it's like this like it's like this thing where we're teammates, but I think the construction teams feel like the design teams are almost like override a lot of their their things, and they think that they're just dumb construction workers, and then like the construction workers think designers are just unrealistic and want this like beautiful thing on the resume. So like I think there's just so much like there's just a huge communication gap. I mean industry wide. And if you're not on collaborative projects, you'll never really truly understand that. And you'll always, every job will be the exact same with a designer, with the contractor, you know what I mean? Like all the way throughout. So it's, how would you say us as an industry can improve that? Like, what is something from your perspective that the contractor can do right off the bat that you feel like would improve that communication?
This might sound frou-frou, but I read more into like the lean processes and just lean construction in general, and what you learn, and then looking back of all the projects, all the breakdown, if you really want to summarize it, it comes down to communication. Now, communication, again, like then that means like interaction with another human being. I think about this a lot. And it's about trust. So when you approach somebody, say I'm like on a design team, and then like I forgot a detail to put it in the drawings or something, and I need to have a level of trust and a level of I don't know, maybe comfort, so I can like approach somebody like on the construction team, like, hey, because first I have to be vulnerable and like, I am so sorry, I forgot to add this detail, but this is what I meant to do on this space. That I need to trust that this other person is not going to shame me, is not going to punish me in any way. And then I need to be comfortable enough to actually articulate then how do we kind of work this through? And then to get to that point, I feel like, yeah, you have to have that level of comfort with each other. This is where the fruit comes in, is that you have to get to know everybody in a somewhat personal level. It can't be just surface level. I like the best way to bond with somebody is to talk about not work. I met with our Philadelphia team the first time ever, and you just talk about lives, and at the end of the day we go out dancing, and and I feel comfortable if I ever get put on the Philadelphia team, I will work well with them. because I have that interaction. So I don't know. It's for me right now. It's hard for me to see any company to to invest like high budget for fun times, because that does sound like a waste of time, right? Because you're having fun, but then at the same time, no, you actually trying to make sure that these people gel together and vibe together. So then when you actually have to face them with like bigger things, they know that they're gonna try to work it out. So yeah, that's kind of so far my thought process, kind of, at least for me personally. Again, like that's what I always try to do. I try to just reach out to the engineer, like, hey, what's up? And, just talk about stuff. Like, if you're just hanging out in a room while waiting for a meeting, you can ask, like, any fun plans this weekend?
So more happy hours is what you're saying.
Yeah, it kind of implies, but it could be something else.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think, and we've all worked on collaborative spaces, and I think we all agree that those projects went a lot smoother than any of our other projects that didn't have that environment. And I mean, that's how you and I met, right? And like, look, like that's what I always use this as an example. I'm like, working on a collaborative project and an IPD project, like we didn't just work well together. Like, we befriended a lot of the people off that team are like friends. Like, you know what I mean? And like, so Vega and I, and the PE, she's now an APM for the company that was on this project, on the general contractor side. So the three of us are like really close, and we like see each other quite often. And then we also like have a group chat where, if Vega has a question about casework or something millwork related or whatever, she'll reach out to me and say, hey, is this like, what do you think about this? Like, do you think this would be okay in this space? And sometimes I'll be like, no, like that, we had that on a project and it didn't work. And I think we kind of, so the collaborative environment that we build, it's not just the relationship on the project, but you build like the network you build for the rest of your career is very, invaluable there too.
What about the people not on collaborative projects though? Because we know that's not common. We would love it to be common, but it's not. But I mean, I know in my current role, I'm dealing with people across multiple offices in regards to different states. Like, how do you build that relationship with people that you're not with every single day? And I mean, I understand there's some people that you can pick up the phone and like the first 10, 15 minutes, you're hanging out and you can talk to them like, hey, how was your weekend? Whatever. But there's some people that literally hate that. Like, just get to the point. Why are you calling me? Let's move on and go from there. I mean, that's an environment like since COVID, we are more apt to be in that environment than we are to be the in-person environment. So how do you, especially for you, Vega, from the design side, you're trying to build a relationship for what you need 2 years down the line with a GC, a superintendent, a PM, whoever that doesn't care about your scope of work and what you've got going on, because that's 2 years down the line. So how are you starting that early on and across multiple regions?
Listen, if I know the silver bullet for that, maybe, but it still has to be that personal. So, and then because I'm an interior designer, right? If it's not in a collaborative project scenario, I would rarely talk with the contractor, or sometimes the engineers. Even that, it might not be like a day in day out kind of thing. So for me, what most important, I would have to have like a good relationship with the PM internally, and then have the PM understand my design intent, why I'm doing it this way. And so the PM can advocate, say like the PM goes into the OAC meeting and then I won't be there, but because I have like that personal relation, we communicated a lot, the PM understand the design intent. So it'd be like, I don't know, the GC came back, we can't, well, this wall protection is $10,000 over budget. And then, well, Vega already put it in there. well, I talked to her, like she know, like I know this, like why is that not included? So like basically it's not, because especially when it comes to budget, that's like, what do you kind of, that's like the silver bullet to just kind of cut whatever. But because say like my PM understand my design intent and what I've already done within the drawings, then they can advocate for me. This is not like an end all be all. If say like, but it's really like over budget, like can we do anything? Then, then come back and we start talking. Maybe when it comes to that, I could probably ask, like, can I talk to the contractor to just understand, like, to have the first-hand information, like what's happening and then how we can solve it. Because and as designers, we work really closely with reps, with manufacturer reps as well. So kind of like when you design something, like there's this product and I'm like, I want to curve it. Can I curve it? And they're like, yeah, you can curve it. But like, what kind of labor costs that involved? Like, I don't know. But then sometimes I would just like, let's have everybody talk together.
Yes.
This is my design intent. And then the contractor, the installer will be like, well, this is the budget that we need to hit. And then the manufacturer will like, you know what? We have this hardware that can do that without you having to, whatever. So then you have all the people we need in the room together. It's not maybe like, I think in the collaborative projects, that's kind of organically became like that. In a more traditional one, I think there's definitely like channels that you need to go through. So it's a bit longer, which is waste. That's not lean. That, but at the end, if the intent is there, then I think we can get to that. And that's the most important thing, is when you go into that table, architect, owner, contractor, is to set up that intent to be, I always like, does this sound frou-frou? But it is. At the end of the day, it's about humans interacting with humans. And humans, as humans, we have our own perspective on things. We're complicated, like mind-wise, like it does need that, the talking. Like I think people who doesn't want to like just, I don't need this, like just get to the point. Yes, we can probably like cater our communication system with them more direct, but at the end of the day, that person still have to communicate with us. And if we set up the tone that we all gonna have to be in this for the next 4 years, we better like each other, and this is how we need to communicate with each other, then I think if we all agree on that, even the grumpiest one, at least able to figure out something. You know what I mean? Like, even if they're grumpy, they're adult. They can be told, like, listen, Vega likes to be at least asked about what flavor ice cream she wants. I don't know. To start the tone, like, before you give her the bad news or something.
Help learn. Yeah. Like, hey, yes,
Yeah.
you, this is how to deal with this person. And here's some good things that she likes. So if you're going to go tell her bad news, bring her some special ice cream.
I have an experience actually on a traditional project with an interior designer, Vega, that's like just like exactly what you're talking about. Like we had a situation where there was a few different things that either the material was discontinued or the design wasn't feasible because of X, Y, and Z. Like there were some things that, as an interior trade, I really, really just wanted to talk to the interior designer. Like it was just like we were going back and forth with RFI, like constantly. And finally I was like, can we please just get on a call with the interior? Like, why are we doing this? Why do we have to play this game of telephone? And finally the contractor was like, yes, please. Like, let's just get this figured out. So we hopped on a call, and I'm not even kidding. Within 20 minutes of being on the call with this interior designer, we solved the problem. And it was like, yes, obviously we had to capture it in an RFI afterwards and like get it, officially documented.
The formality of it. Yeah.
Exactly. But like the fact of the matter was that we were able to explain our intent. Like because our entire goal is to meet the design intent, right? Like no matter what, that's what we want to do as interior contractor, but sometimes there's things that we, just aren't feasible, like for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so I think just explaining that and not just being like, hey, your design's dumb, like redesign this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like what I feel like RFIs do. Like RFIs are so impersonal and they're so, right? Like they're almost like per my last email, kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
I hate writing RFIs because I just want to put a smiley face in there just so they know, like,
that makes you go, like, how many RFIs do you get? And you're like, the hell are they thinking? Like, because I think I'm writing my RFI like super, like, here's the problem, here's the solution. But I also do wonder because sometimes I get response back and I'm like, okay, what did they think I was talking about? Because this is not answering it. Like, what do you think when you get an RFI sometimes? Like, I'm sure there's ones that you're just like, what? Like this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what?
For sure. I think the one that I was like, sometimes when I get it, I would double check, did I not draw that? And I went back like, yeah, it's right there. Like, wait, but why are they questioning this? Like, refer to this. And then when, and then from, exactly. And it's like, you're right, Jenna. That whole paperwork part, if we can just come together from the get-go, figure it out together, and then do the confirming RFI, so much easier. And that just mainly for a record, because say like I said, refer to this, A/ whatever, like A45, and then they look at that and it's still missing something that they still need. Like, yeah, but how do you do this? And then there's another RFI, like, what? God damn it. And then you realize, like, did I not draw it right? And just kind of, I think to just get on the phone, trying to understand will be the best. And I think casework, if we can just make this as if it's more than 20 pages submittals, then everybody just need to hop on the phone and go through it together.
Page flip.
Because, page flip, like, because going back and forth with that is bonkers.
I always, no matter what project it is, especially if it's like a quick turnaround, like if we know you don't have time for a revise and resubmit, like there's no time for that.
Yeah.
Then we'll right off the bat, like we'll submit it and we'll say, hey, give them like some time to chew on it, but hey, can we please get on the call with the interior designer and just walk them through? Because sometimes what ends up happening is like, there's situations where hardware's out of like discontinued or whatever, and sometimes we'll just kind of submit what the next best thing was going to be, and we know it's going to get revised and resubmit because they're going to come back and say, well, this isn't right. So then we usually pair it with a substitution request and trying to like, but like getting on a call and just being like, can we please walk through all of these things? Because there are a lot of clarifications that are, included in this. And that way we're not like playing this revise and resubmit game constantly. And like, because it does happen a lot, right? Like there's, and I think something, I guess, a good question for you. So I've had this happen on a project where, we submitted our shop drawings and we got them revised and resubmit. And the reason for the revise and resubmit was because they had addendums coming out that hadn't actually been issued yet. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle, like, if you get a set of shop drawings of whatever it is, and that there's future changes, like, how do you
I think, see, this is where the trust needs to come in. Like, we know those are formality process that we're doing. Like on the design side of things, we're actually gonna have an ASI. The submittals that I have on my hand right now is actually obsolete, like, because it's changing over here. I feel like that's as easy as just pick up the phone and talk to the GC, like, hey, we have this and we have the submittals. Like, and we're actually changing all this that will affect the submittals. At least then ask the question, how do you want me to handle this? Do you want me to just revise, resubmit, like, or just kind of reject it all around and just tell them to hold off? Just then, like, figuring out solution there and then. And like, obviously then the GC would understand what kind of scheduling that would involve. And again, I think then, let's bring
Yeah.
and just talk it through. So, but that takes trust, right? Like to get on the phone and be open about, hey, there's an addendum, like we added this, because those things come from, either the owner, some, I don't know, AHJ have review and now we have to change something. Things had, this is what we do, like it just kept changing. It's just good. It's so cheesy, but communication is key.
What about because do you ever get like pushback? And I guess that's of wanting to have that conversation with, maybe it's the trade partner, because I feel like that's sometimes a wall that is held up, that I've experienced in my past, between me as a trade partner and then the general contractor and then that design team, where it's like, hey, if I can just make this phone call, like, or if I can we just have a meeting, you're on the call with me. No, we don't want the trade partner talking to the design team. That's not how we do things. And that really creates, a hard situation, because then I have to do these RFIs over and over and over again and have to keep trying to do that. And then I have to explain my story to the GC PM, who then has to then play telephone and then go take it to you. And I mean, it goes back to the trust. I'm hoping that I've explained it well enough, and I trust that PM is going to explain it well enough to you. But I feel like that's also a frustration, is that there's sometimes that roadblock of like, no, we're protecting each other from each other. Like, oh, we can't have them talk. Yeah. Like, oh, that's horrible. I mean, have you experienced that kind of feeling before?
I have that definitely more in the early days of my career, but I feel like I've been lucky to be part of a design team where the PA, the project manager of the project that I was on is just open enough. I think so. My understanding of like that gatekeeping, I suppose, is always about liability, right? Like, so they just want to make sure that they are in the loop. But that's the key thing. Like, if you just want to be in the loop, be in the conversation too. I just need to be able to, like, if you want to listen in, that's fine. But we have a problem. We're trying to find a solution. And it's like, it's this problem and this person can answer. This is the people that we need to be in. And then like, yeah, definitely, I know. Usually when projects have gone through like, I don't know, whatever, and then it's so hard, and then you start CCing like a gazillion people. Like, I know it's annoying, but at the end of the day, you have the track, but I don't know, a phone call is so much easier to just discuss and then just make sure everybody that needs to know is on the call. Yeah,
healthcare is really good at doing that. I feel like healthcare has been an area that has probably been easily like 10 plus years of practicing that communication. I think that's just because of the nature of what it is, the amount of work to, build not only like spaces for inpatient, but then you have your OR rooms and your x-ray. There's so much that is all next to each other that you have to do it. I feel like healthcare has gotten very well at, at least trying for that collaborative. I believe, that's where I've experienced most of my collaborative projects. I think it's slowly getting out to more traditional commercial projects, but I think there's still that gap there where companies that have just like, this is how we've always done it, and we love that term. It's like, no, you can't talk to them. That's I think it's great. Your liability. It's back to liability. It's like, you can be there in the meeting. It's completely fine. But some people just are so uncomfortable with it because that's what they're used to. And they don't want the trade partner to be able to talk to them. They think something bad's going to happen. I mean, I've had that, like, they're coming on site today or they're going to be in the meeting. Make sure you like know what to say and not to say. And it's like, well, what do you think I'm going to say? I know.
Well, you know what though? I do have to say, when I did work for a general contractor, I ironically, like, because I understand, like, you know, the casework, millwork side of things, I was like, right off the bat with this project, I hopped on a call with the interior designer and the millworker that we were working with. And this millworker is not like my company, just to say. And we get on the call and they started like bashing us, kind of like my company, like the GC that I was working for.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not what you're supposed to say.
But exactly. So like that, so I kind of get like there's certain types and like of companies that do that, right? Like where they're like mad at the GC, and so they'll like undermine them in front of the design team and make them not look as competent. And that's not okay. Like, because at the end of the day, as a trade partner, your customer is the general contractor, period. That is your customer, right? And then their customer is the owner, right? And then like same thing with like design team, right? Your guys' customer is the owner. So like I think that with traditional projects, that's what makes it so difficult, is that the contracts and the legal binding, you know, verbiage and all of that, and not wanting to burn bridges and whatever. So like I think there is, going back to the trust, there is a level of trust that the general contractors have to have with their trade partners in order to open up that level of communication between the design team and the trade partners, because there are times when they can potentially hurt you as the general contractor, and that's what they want to avoid. Or they don't want you to sell the farm under their nose, right? Because like you're promising a world where they, and then some of it has to, and what you're promising the design team potentially affects these other trades, or potentially affects the schedule, or potentially affects the GC. And if they're not in that level of communication and they don't understand what you're saying, then you guys would come back and be like, well, Jenna said that you guys could do this. And then the contract.
That's also prepping. Like if I'm about to go into a meeting, it's like the same thing. If the GC calls me in and it's like, we're going to have a meeting, and I'm like, about what? And they're like, about this, and I know nothing about it. I'm going to get my team together and prep for it. So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, I think it's a good idea for the trade partner and designer to talk. I've never been in that environment with this trade partner before. Let's sit down and have a meeting. What are we going to talk about? What are we going forward with? Right. So then you have like that prep meeting so that you are on the same page. And if it goes offshoot, that's when you raise the hand to go, we need to take a break. This is not where we were trying to go, and let's pull off. You're right. And I think that's not everyone is well prepared to stop and raise a hand and say, hey, this isn't what we are trying to do. I mean, some people are better at the others, but I think it's trust. But then you can't have trust without trying something, usually, right? You've got to try a way to build the trust. So if you just assume bad intent, you probably will always assume bad intent. And that's what your expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
And like, within that like trust realm there, you're right, you kind of have to take a risk, especially if you get put into a team where you never worked with them before. There has to be, but in order for this project to succeed, I need to have some kind of level of trust. Trying to, it's scary, because you're right, like it could backfire for sure. Like,
but probably more often times it doesn't. Like I think that's the problem, is like we assume the worst. And you know, and after that happened, I did have a conversation with that trade partner, and talking with them, I think they had been burned so many times by the general contractor that they were jaded, right, because of that. And so they came into it, and I was like, whoa, that's not how we operate here. Like, that's not how this is going to go. That's not how this product's going to go. And after a couple weeks of working with them, they loved our team. And they were like, we've never worked with a GC like you guys before. Like, this is like way different than what we're used to. And I think, you know, we built that trust. But, you know, you kind of have to like, I'm the opposite, where I'm like, I go in thinking the best. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm such like an
I do too.
Like,
yeah.
I walk in thinking like,
I am not.
We're gonna work together.
Yeah, and then the superintendent's like super mean. I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
Wait.
I am always prepared, and this is probably my PM brain from my last 18 years of I am expecting the worst. I am prepared for the worst. I am prepared the meeting is going to go bad. I over prepare to make sure I have everything figured out. And then the meeting usually doesn't go as bad as I thought it would be. But then I feel happy leaving the meeting because of that reason. But I usually prepare for the worst and end up happy in the end. So I don't know. That's worked for me, but I try not to just assume bad intent on people, but at least just be like, what's the worst thing that can happen in the conversation? Like, not that like Jenna, you're gonna yell at me. More or less like, what is Jenna gonna say that's gonna potentially like tip me, and what am I gonna say back? Like I overthink some. I don't do it as much anymore, especially if it's meetings or situations I've been in many times. But there is like a thought process that, because I think back to I've been in those situations where I've been yelled at, where I've been like cornered and not prepared with what to say, and that can be very hard to deal with. So I mean, I could see both ways. That like why someone would be like, I don't want these people to talk, but it doesn't fit within what we're talking about right now. Like, let's get together and collaborate. So it's I think the jadedness can create some of those problems. So opening up to go, it's okay, you're jaded. Try something different. It's okay. Let's like open it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that you know, like with me sometimes, if I have a hard time with, I don't know, some like a PM or something, usually, and it is about the communication. Like I don't know how to talk with him or something, and they're like, usually the excuse that they would give to me is like, yeah, they're old. He's old school. He's old, whatever. Like they're used to a certain way and all this, and sometimes I'm like, I know other old people that doesn't act like that, like we can, like it can be done, but I do need some kind of openness from that other person, and it is then like about I have to be brave enough. I'm an overthinker too, Kelley. And like sorry, and I'm an overthinker as well, and I don't see the bad thing in over prepared, but I think you said it earlier. The thing that makes a difference is that you don't come in with the assumption people have bad intent. Like, well, because I'm an overthinker, I don't see a problem in over prepping. The only problem, obviously, like you just give yourself anxiety leading up to it. That's the only thing. But yeah, like I think as you can go into the meeting with open-minded enough, not making an assumption what other people intents are, I think that's it. That's all we can ask for from anyone within the team. Because and then for you to just come in with an open mind, I think that's all we can hope for. Because yeah, people have different experience, like what they've gone through before, and it's not necessarily like their fault to be defaulting to a certain way that doesn't work with you. But again, like that part of the interaction part, like then how do we be able to communicate better? And I feel like Strength Finder has been helpful as well, as I kind of understand other people's strength and trying to read like, okay, this is how they kind of understand information. This is how they take information. It just kind of help you to approach them. Part of my overthinking is that like trying to talk with this difficult person, like what's their strength finder? What's their number one? It's like, okay, and then you try to read like, okay, how do they take information? How do I can like explain this to him? And yeah.
I do the same thing. We at my company we have we do the DISC assessment, and some people have strength finders and stuff too. And I'm like, before someone takes it, I'm like, what do I think they're going to be, like based on who they are, and then I'm usually I'm thinking about that also. Do you guys do like internal to your company? You're doing strength finders? Yeah. Have you done it with project teams, like with the general contractor before to like understand theirs too?
Yeah, so the first collaborative project that I was on, I had to take it, and that was 2017, I believe. I took it, and then like I have no idea what this all about, like what is happening, and like I don't know what this is. And like with, I don't know if you heard about this before, with Strength Finder you kind of go through like level of like acceptance. It's like, I'm not that, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, you don't tell me who I am or something like that. And then as you keep
I
moving
agree
forward,
with this one. You're wrong.
yeah, like
Stupid
that's
test.
not a strength. Yeah. And then you look back and like, okay, maybe. And then you fully embrace it. Like, okay, this actually helps me. Like, oh yes, this is why I take a long time to make a decision, because I overthink and I do want to get all the information. So like if you need a decision fast, this is not the girl you want. I mean, like I'm working on it. I'm working in that, because I understand that about me. I am working on like, okay, I may only have partial information. What's the best decision that I can make based on the partial information? And then you have like plan B, plan C, plan D, for just in case.
Yeah. So Vega, I have one last question for you that I've been curious about, and I think that this is something we've touched on like a lot of our podcasts. What are your thoughts as a designer in terms of schedules? Do you think that they've gotten shorter? Do you feel like they've gotten more aggressive? What are your thoughts? Like, because I know, as a contract, like working on the contractor side, we only see the schedule really from, construction. But what are your thoughts on the design schedule and then leading into the construction schedule?
I don't know. It might be getting shorter. I do have like problems with, why does everything has to be really fast? I and a lot of that, this could be another communication, because I, as a designer, I'm also was just given like, we have DD due at this point and it's going to be for pricing, and then after that, like we'll see where that comes in, and then we'll continue with CD. And this is hard because it really ties in, at least in the design part, the design schedule, it ties with the fee that we provide to the client, right? The client agree on something that me as like the interior designer, maybe not necessarily always part of that conversation. This could be a good thing in that this is why the collaborative process is much better, in that you have everybody on the table that can give you that information, valuable information. Like, okay, we're gonna do, like when COVID hits, like the price of steel or like whatever, something with the tariff like goes up, and then you start talking about, what do we do? Like, we can't pivot, we need it. Like, do we just order now before the tariff, or do we order later? Something like that. I was just eavesdropping on that meeting. But for me as a designer, the part that sometimes I feel like even like the architects it's not understanding, is that, especially if it's a client that doesn't have standards, that just still kind of whatever you want to bring us, it's like, I need some time to understand what is their comfort level with the look and feel. Like, design is so much. Like, do you want contemporary look? Do you want more of that traditional, transitional look? Like, their location is in, I don't know, Watford City, North Dakota. I had that. It was like very rural, right? And like, what? And then design language too. They use it differently. Like, I need to understand what is it that they want out of this. That takes some time. That could take like a whole week to even understand what they want. Once I understand the direction that they want, then I have to put together a design palette, like a palette for it, and then start actually designing something with the massing. Again, like that takes some time. My favorite example was that I was in a project where when I joined, it was towards it's in DD. I'm told that the client already has an interior designer, and I was just gonna help with the documentation. Great, that'll be easy enough. I come in. It was a behavioral health facility, and like so they have standards. Let me see what the standards are and start understanding what it is. And then I'm like, is this right? Like, do we want? Did you guys talk about putting LVT in the inpatient room? Like, I would never do that in behavioral health facility. Just asking the question because I just want to the why, right? Like, just want to understand. And then turns out they did a first kind of trial, like it's a small space, and they did not like any of what that was happening. While the DD keep going, and then we turn to CD, and then all of a sudden I'm told, Vega, you're it. Design this in CD. So like panicking, and just that's actually when I learned I need some time. I know it's not like a new build or like a giant full tower, but to be doing it thoughtfully, like doing it right, it takes some time. So what I learned was like at least a week for me to understand what they want and another week for me to like just come up with something that's presentable. So I don't know if I answer your question. It does feel like it gets shorter and shorter, but I think it needs that another communication, that level of communication. Like for me internally, I just have to talk with the architecture team because I'm part of the architecture team. Just in the interior scope of things, this is what I need. And again, this is not an ultimatum when I go to them because I understand whatever time I spend in it, that ties to a fee. And then we're trying to be, what do you call it? Like we want to be competitive, right? So then that will be a conversation like, okay, maybe don't do 20 renderings, maybe just do like 10 of them.
Yeah.
What does that look like? So
do you think that if you guys had more time on the design side before the project started, like let's say you had a longer time frame, that there would be less changes during the actual construction process? You don't think so?
Oh my God, designers, you give them more, they will use to the very, like I am aware of this. Like if you let us design forever, we will design for, if you give us forever as a timeline, we will design it forever. So we do need a timeline for sure.
Yeah.
But it is, it's that managing of expectation, right? Like say, okay, they're going to do pricing they're going to do pricing on our DD set. Like, okay, so what does a pricing set needs to be? It doesn't necessarily need that much detail. So I'm not going to spend time detailing everything, but they do need like at least a type of, if the design is not there yet, because that happens, like we're in DD and I'm like, literally a box and some columns. I don't know what to do. You just start putting allowances. You start like, we're going to have sheet vinyl here. You're going to have, whatever, like flooring is probably the highest like scope for interiors. So just making sure that the intent of the flooring type is there for pricing, maybe that will be the most helpful. And that helps in terms of me, like time wise. Like I'm not necessarily, if we are crunching time, but that's just kind of strategy, right? Like I probably don't have the luxury to really understanding like what kind of pattern I want to create with the flooring, but I know I want a pattern, but at least I can articulate it in a maybe annotation.
Yeah. But you think changes will always be there?
I think I've embraced that because in the 11 years, I don't think we ever produce a perfect CD that doesn't have an RFI. I think it's just by nature of being human. Even talking, we can have a miscommunication. How do you try to communicate something from a drawing, like a 2D set? That's even harder. I mean, I think at least with my company, we are trying to push more with VR, like Papa Goggle. So the design team will keep modeling, keep doing our thing. And then the update with the owner, just to make sure everything is still in line, is that they pop a goggle, we pop a goggle, meet virtually, and just start walking the space. And they start, we make notes. That's a way too to kind of be efficient in this time
Yeah.
span. Yeah, I think we do get the pressure of the schedule. I mean, and I'm sure the owner also gets pressure from like their organization, right? Like they needed something to open at a certain date.
That's what I think is happening probably. There's just so many levels to it, and everyone feels pressure, and there's deadlines through every process of construction. So, I think a lot of it is miscommunication, and a lot of it is just the nature of the beast. And
Yeah.
I think just working through it so that we can work together is going to make the project go a lot smoother regardless of the schedule timeline. But well, thanks, Vega. This has been I love that like we finally got you on. We had you on our list of guests for probably since we started the podcast. So
I'm honored.
We appreciate you hopping on. Do you have anything else that you want our audience to know just from your perspective? I mean, this is our first time having a designer on the podcast. So any last thoughts?
Ooh. Last thoughts. I don't know. I think I've said it. I think just kind of be nice to your designer. They do have intent. There's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. I know nobody likes a curve wall, but there's a reason for it. And, if you can find out why, maybe it'll make it easier to help him at least have a meaning towards your work.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.